Joining us for the World Brief and review of some of the headlines of today's newspaper around the world is Adefemi Akinsoya. She's here. Morning.
I am here.
Thank
you. I feel like, one of those, one of the children of the family have come to the rich families like mansion. I'm in wonderful company here.
Rich auntie
vibes. Yes, exactly. You guys are taking great care of me. But indeed, we are looking at our global brief, and we saw, of course, in the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris has reportedly secured enough delegate endorsements, more than 1,976 delegates, to win the Democratic presidential nomination. That's according to different reports. It's not something that's been independently verified, but that is the line that we're going with. And with growing celebrity endorsements and $250 million in pledges and donations, $81 million of that raised in a record-breaking first 25 hours, Harris is believed to be the Democratic frontrunner. Now, she spoke to campaign staff in Wilmington, Delaware, just yesterday, and she had the following message.
Before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California, and before that I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And in this campaign, I will proudly put my record against his.
I think it's even a bit of an understatement to say that Kamala Harris, or rather President Trump, has met his match, because I don't think that there is a match in there. And one thing I do like, I have to say, is a very classy insult, a classy and truth-laden insult. So that is definitely going to be a very, very interesting race to the White House. Now, the vice president still, as we've already said, she must secure the Democratic nomination, something she says that she is willing to earn. And she's been calling Democratic governors, including Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, for his support. Now, Beshear has not denied whether or not he was asked by Harris to be her running mate. But when we are talking about running mates, who could her choices be? Well, let's take a look at this. This is a list of some prospects that could join Vice President Kamala Harris on her ticket. Firstly, we're looking at Senator Mark Kelly, who's a veteran himself, an astronaut. And also, when we're looking at gun violence, he is the person whose wife was held at gunpoint. She was shot and he stood by her. So it'd be very interesting to see what his presence on a Harris ticket would look like. Just to the right of him, we've got Governor Andy Beshear, who I just talked about. He's the Kentucky governor. And he was talking a few hours ago, and he talked about how he spoke to Kamala Harris on the phone, that she was looking for his support, that he did in fact give her his support, but stopped short of discussing whether or not he had been asked to be her running mate. And he also denied that he had submitted any type of information for vetting purposes at this point. Next to him, we've got the governor of Pennsylvania, which is a major swing state, Governor Josh Shapiro. Again, he would be a good running mate beside Vice President Harris. And then lastly, we've got Governor of Michigan State, Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer, I mean, if this is something that's not going to happen. She was doorstepped. She was doorstepped, and she said herself that this is not something that's going to happen. But it would be quite historic to have a woman ticket. I don't think that that's what the Democratic Party need. I don't think that that's what any part of the electorate are looking for, 2 women on the ticket. But it was interesting to include her. And as we are talking about running mates now, President Trump's vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, spoke in Middletown, Ohio yesterday. And he took a swipe at President Biden and Vice President Harris. Let's take a listen to that.
I was going to get to debate Kamala Harris, and now President Trump's going to get to debate her. I'm kind of pissed off about that, if I'm being honest with you. When I see her give a speech, and she talks about the history of this country, not with appreciation, but with condemnation, And look, of course, every country, just like every family, certainly mine, has its pockmarks, right? Not everything's perfect. It's never going to be. But if you want to lead this country, you should feel grateful for it. You should feel a sense of gratitude. And I never hear that gratitude come through when I listen to Kamala Harris. The idea of selecting the Democrat Party's nominee because George Soros and Barack Obama and a couple of elite Democrats got in a smoke-filled room and decided to throw Joe Biden overboard, that is not how it works. That is a threat to democracy, not the Republican Party, which is fighting for democracy every single day.
You know, listen to J.D. Vance. I thought it was quite interesting and almost a little offensive. Some of the dog whistles he used in his comments just then. He talked about how he'd never heard Kamala Harris be grateful to be American. And the question is, what do you mean? This is a career lawyer, someone who is a former senator, a former attorney general. I can't imagine how could her excellence not exhibit a sense of great gratitude. And I do think that there is perhaps some form of a racial connotation to that, because why do you think that she should be grateful? I do think that often whiteness in countries like the United States, United Kingdom, can be weaponized in this way. You already know what your base is. You already know what you are facing when it comes to diversity. You did hear senior Republicans refer to Kamala Harris as a DEI hire, which in and of itself is an offensive thing to do. But to say that you've never heard her be grateful to be an American, what does that even mean? It implies that she is not one. And I don't think that he would appreciate someone saying that about his wife, who is not a white person. So I do think that it was quite distasteful to hear his comments. I'll come to two of you for comments on what we've looked at. But lastly, a last part of our global brief is looking at bipartisan calls for Kimberly Cheetle, who is the head of the Secret Service, to resign. She has admitted that the assassination attempt on President Trump was a colossal failure, but she has stopped short of stepping down despite calls on both sides of the aisles for her to do so. Rufai, Ayo, a lot to get through today. What are your thoughts on what we've listened to so far?
Honestly, I think those bipartisan call about Kimberly is right. She should resign. I mean, there's the Secret Service with about 8,000 members of staff just dropped the ball. Trump, whatever it is you have against him, could have been killed easily. And it was a sad one for America. They could have surveyed those areas properly. And they had I repeat, no reason why that happened. I mean, you could see the analysis of, there was over a 70-year-old man that went on that roof. It was just a slopey roof. So he could find his position, and the CIA was, the Secret Service was saying they couldn't get on the roof. It's a no-brainer. I think she must take full responsibility. Investigations are still on. When they are out, if she's found culpable, she must be able to take the fall for it. Secondly, I think Kamala has energized the base. In the space of 24 hours, she's raised about 81 million. Right. That's unprecedented. Record-breaking. Even Trump didn't raise that when he had his court case, palaver and all of that. And what she's also doing is, because she's a prosecutor, she's so ready for him. And a lot of the Generation Zs are not getting on the bandwagon. A lot of them said, oh, when Obama was having his moments, they were not alive, but this is their own Obama moment. Yeah. So they are having this coconut quote going around when she said, she was advising a couple of people in the White House, and she said, do you think I just fell off a coconut tree? I worked hard for it. So that's the response for J.D. Vance. When he says the rubbish, he says that she's not grateful, for the opportunity America gave her. The response is, do you think she just fell off a coconut tree?
Literally.
She worked herself out to the top. And we've also seen that even her opponent, Trump, admires her. In the past, he invested $5,000 in her campaign to
They want to keep that quiet, though.
No, but it's true. It happened.
It is true.
He invested $5,000, another $1,000 when she was running for district, when she was running for attorney, state attorney. So the truth has to be said.
Right. And J.D. Vance, you heard him say that, he's almost a bit disappointed that he didn't get to run up against Kamala Harris. I think he's breathing a huge sigh of relief.
He can't even come close. Then there's a lot of trouble with Trump now. Right. So what she has just done is to energize that base. And you can see the numbers are beginning to come in. The race is now closed. For the 8 to about 46, couple of the swing states are already, closing up. When Biden saw the result that he was not doing well in the swing states, and even also the safe states like New Mexico and the likes, when Conchetti came in to tell him, then he took that decision in the afternoon, and you can see the after effects. And guess what? Concerning the nomination, she's got it already, because she's got enough delegates to take her out of the mark. over 153 House of Rep members endorsed her. The Black Caucus in the House endorsed her. 10 governors endorsed her. And I think they're going to fast track. I was reading Axios this morning. They're going to fast track the nomination. Probably by 7th of August, they're going to lock it in for her. She's going to make that nomination so that they will have a united front
at
with
the convention.
convention. I think she's woman drive.
Yeah, she needs at least 1,976 nominations, and according to reports, it's not official yet. She has been able to secure that support. But of course, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. You can say one thing and do the other. So until it's actually, it's cast, then it's not who yet. However, I believe that her first few hours, having been endorsed by President Joe Biden, has been excellent. It has been really good. Let me not use the word excellent. Has been really good. Her first showing in terms of her, number one, of course, the money's raised. The endorsement by Nancy Pelosi has definitely pushed. We had talked about the fact that some critical Democrats would need to come into support for her to really gain that base. One was Nancy Pelosi, the other was Barack Obama, and of course the other seniors. But this is really good showing for her. In terms of J.D. Vance and the Republican Party, of course, I mean, I can imagine that they're going back to the drawing board in terms of the strategy table and looking for ways to really come against her. They've lost one of their biggest arguments in terms of mental acuity, age, which Joe Biden presented to them. So it's now to begin to, look for things to fight against Kamala Harris. And unfortunately, at the moment, it seems the only thing they're looking at is to rally up what Trump was doing in the first election in terms of now bringing race subtly to the conversation, which is what would get a number of the far rights on their side. I think that was the game he was playing in terms of mentioning, she ought to be grateful. We all know that she's born to parents. Her dad is Jamaican, her mom is Asian, from Indian. Yeah. And then she was born on American soil. If not, she won't be able to run for election. She did live in India for a considerable amount. I mean, she visited her parents, her mom's side of the family, but she's had a very good record. And I don't think it should be brought into the conversation as to the fact that, because what he was trying to imply is that she's not fully American as American should be. And we heard that before. So exactly. So she should be grateful. Would he say that about himself, that I'm consistently grateful for being American? He's like, what other choice do you have? But it's almost, it's the default. But moving on to Kimberly Cheetle, I'm saying that because I have to say this in terms of accountability. That's what a number of countries on this side of the world do not seem to have. See how we're saying, she should resign. I'm like, nice. It's good of you to say that. Can we say that in this country whereby someone messes up royally in terms of, and the speech, I read the transcript of her initial speech at that investigation. It was very heartfelt. She was able to demonstrate her record of over 30 years in the Secret Service, saying that she worked her way up the ranks, so she deserved the job. She knew what she was doing, so that it wouldn't in any way discredit her ability to lead that organization. And then beyond that, saying that she did take responsibility. So number one, leadership by ownership of and taking responsibility, even though it wasn't her that was directly responsible for that breach, on that day. And then talking about moves and efforts that they are making for future events. She was able to speak about her record, saying that she's been able to secure presidents since President Bill Clinton, and then been able to secure over 1,500 events, and also talked about how they were going to better secure the Democratic Convention, and how so it wasn't just about people say she's from my state, please give her some space, or Bana saying that
off your mind,
or Bana saying that please do not. This is an attack on our ethnic group. It was fact based on fact, and so if they were to forgive her in terms of not ask her to step down, well within their rights, because she was able to prove her track record.
There is that too. Something that happens when women are in positions of power. Just have to mention that. Let's move on now to news headlines across the globe. We begin in Nigeria with the front cover of This Day newspaper. And the cover of This Day newspaper, of course, focuses on the back and forth between Aliko Dangote, the federal government, the NMDPRA, this entire debacle. And then you've got quotes from Godswill Akpabio, who says that he has tasked this committee. He himself will identify and hold the saboteurs in the petroleum sector accountable. In addition to that story, there's also to the very top of This Day conversations about the 50% forex gains tax in Nigeria, and how the NASS has pledged that it will not this Finance Act, this part of the Finance Act will not negatively affect Nigerians. From this day, let's take a look at The Punch. The Punch is also looking at this fuel crisis and the fact that marketers are projecting some 700 billion naira monthly subsidy. And that, of course, leads itself to the issues that we're seeing in the petroleum sector in Nigeria, oil and gas issues across the country, and the fact that the NNPC, according to this headline, is quiet as dealers insist the government is to pay, is still paying these subsidies. We're still talking about Dangote, the NNPCL, there's so many letters, the NMD, PRA, and the NUPRC brawl on the front page of the Daily Trust too. Again, going back and forth, this time listening to ministers and what they have to say about this debacle, this issue that's happening at the very helm of the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. If we take a look at The Guardian, though, stepping away from oil and gas, The Guardian is reporting that 30,000 jobs, more than 30,000 jobs, have been lost in Nigeria due to the closure of manufacturing firms in the last 4 years alone, which is dastardly to hear. And again, works in direct contrast against different information that we're getting from the presidency, from these different ministries, that Nigeria's manufacturing sector across all of the different arms of it is galvanizing, is picking up space. We just need a bit of time to recoup this loss. But this is a major loss. 30,000 jobs, more than 30,000 jobs in 4 years alone is very, very concerning, and a signpost, hopefully not, of what is to come in the future if the manufacturing industry does not get the support it needs. Lastly, let's take a look at the front page of Business Day. And Business Day is looking at Nigeria's debt burden and how it has set off a reform alarm. My dear friends, Rufai, Ayo, what are your thoughts on these Nigerian papers before we move to others?
Okay, so for me, a couple of things. Number one, Ayo, Femi, the sad reality is that those 30,000 manufacturing jobs are not going to come back. In fact, and the government is not doing the necessary thing for those businesses. They have refuted that they ever said that now, but they muted the beverage tax, which I've been seeing a couple of ads on newspapers every morning. I think those ads, yes, however, I don't like to talk about ads because these things are paid for. But the empirical fact is it's not only beverage drinks, sugar beverage drinks that causes diabetes. So let's just stop.
Are you talking about like Nigerian food, like staples that are also contributing to it? What do you mean?
Oh yeah, your heavy high calorie eba, your heavy high calorie fufu, all those things.
Not touch eba.
No, but
I'm about to say that, don't do that.
Let's not deceive ourselves. Your heavy high calorie staple food are also contributory factors. So when you are saying what's it called? That because of the sugar tax, you're trying to do an advert on the sugar. Should we also do tax on eba or fufu? Because you see, the round belly, a lot of people are, I keep telling you, you can't eat an average Nigerian meal of eba or fufu for dinner. And you live a sedentary lifestyle on top of it. And you will not have big stomach. Stop deceiving yourself. And that's your belly line is a predisposing factor to diabetes.
Right.
So let's stop all of that.
You can't outwork out. You can't work out a bad diet.
You can't outwork out a bad diet. Stop deceiving yourself. It's about your calorific intake. So that's just the point I'm trying to make. So the businesses will not recover quickly because there's no way, no incentive. And at the same time, you're also telling them to pay minimum wage, and they've complained that they don't have to pay.
Right.
And at the same time, your electricity tariff is so high, and this government is not ready to reverse electricity tariff. So everybody will have to go for the flow, and we expect a ray of growth to come somewhere, which I do not know. So that's the real reality. At the same time, also, you are strangulating the banks. The forex gain now for the finance bill, you are saying 50% of the forex gain for the banks. Banks that their profits are already just paper profit in the first place. So let's be realistic on this.
All right, I don't know why Rufai came with violence against Eba.
I don't, and it's the only swallow I like.
On behalf of Nigerians who love the staple, I would say that it's in moderation. Don't think
it's not for every night, right?
It's in moderation. I'm not saying don't eat Eba.
No, but absolutely. I mean, spot on your point in terms of the fact that we must address the issues holistically. But let me talk about, Adefemi, you didn't talk about this, but I saw on the headline of the Guardian newspaper, NLC and NANS talking about the planned protest and how government, I think it's their planned protest, NLC, NANS, Nigerian Association of Nigerian Students, National Association of Nigerian Students, others insist government must address hunger hardship. And this is what I would have preferred for government spokespersons to hammer on, rather than trying to point fingers, saying that, oh, this person is responsible, or there are people who are agitating, who are mobilizing young people. Nobody wants a protest. We all know the effect of a protest. We saw what's happened in previous times. You see what's happening in Kenya. Yes, we might be praising the fact that they're getting their president to listen, but at the expense of what? Of lives being lost, of businesses being, being affected. So nobody wants a protest. No. But what people want is for their voices to be heard and for the government to be responsive. So what I would suggest, rather than expending a lot of energy trying to say, oh, this and pointing fingers, why don't you speak to the people? And also demonstrate by whether lifestyle or even policy positions that you're serious about listening to the fact that Nigerians are facing a very tough time at this point. So these are some of the things that we can begin to do ahead to discourage. Honestly, if you ask a lot of people, they don't want to go out to protest. People want to.
They want to do exactly that.
Nigerians don't want to. But there's almost a feeling of, oh, we're being pushed to this, and the government can arrest this. We don't have to get to a situation whereby we're now beginning to clean up, it's after the fact. Let us prevent this. Let the president, let leadership come out, either through the spokespersons or by himself, and assure the people. Look at what happened in Kenya. At the end of the day, it wasn't a dialogue they were looking for. When he came to their level, after lives had been lost, we don't want to get to that point. Let us preempt that. Let's learn from history and actually open conversations with the young people. Set up committees. Let Nigerians see that you're listening to them, and beyond listening to them, that you're taking action. That's the best situation. I'm hoping that they'll do that.
Idea that can help President Tinubu. If President Tinubu do a quick Twitter Spaces with Nigerians first,
just talk to the people.
It's going to go a long way. Please,
so
President, don't let your advisor talk against you. Just do a quick Twitter. Just listen. You will hear a lot of what they will abuse you. They will say something. Just listen. Just a quick Twitter space.
Yeah, and also be a sounding point for people to get their voice out. They feel respected in the fact that their president has taken the time to listen to them, even if he might not hear or like everything they have to say. You mentioned Ayo many times there, Kenya, and let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation in Kenya this morning. It is still looking at protests and William Ruto really struggling to take a hold of his cabinet, the pressure mounting on him over this new cabinet and making sure that it's not just figureheads that are ticking boxes, but rather there has to be a substantial presence of people who are addressing this civil resistance that he's trying so hard to tame. In addition to the protests and the ongoing political strife that William Ruto personally is facing, there's also a financial burden that's happening. To the top of the page there, you see that the Treasury is in crisis according to this headline because it's failing to release 30 billion Kenyan shillings worth of funds that are supposed to be allocated to local counties in cash. So again, this is going to be something that adds to the gripe of people in these different communities for more than just finance. I mean, definitely it all ties into this initial finance bill, but we're looking at the fact that across many areas of Kenyan life and governance, there is a lot that needs to be addressed if William Ruto is serious about ending these protests once and for all and making sure that the people of Kenya have their voices heard and that there is something tangible that they can say has happened off of the back of their protests so that they can stop and so that Kenya itself can move towards a peaceful nation. If we now take a look at some other international papers, let's take a look at the Daily Telegraph. It's got Kamala Harris on the front page. She's on the front page of many international papers, and they're talking about how this is a coronation. They call it a coronation for Harris as rivals step aside. And as you were saying, Rufai and Ayo, that this is an example of senior Democrats, people who might have had some form of ambition to kind of rally behind Kamala Harris as soon as possible so that when they get to the convention, they are going to be able to emulate to some extent the type of unity that we saw at the Republican National Convention, where it seems as though rather than this being a place where it's a soundboard for lots of different political candidates to make their own claim for the presidency, it was more so an unveiling of this is who we've chosen, this is who we want you to get behind. And I do think that this is what the Democratic Party is aligning itself to do. We're still waiting for the formal endorsement from Barack Obama. But I don't think at this point, definitely it will carry some weight, but it hasn't changed the fact that she's been able to surpass this level at this point.
But What is happening is the fire endorsement will come. Barack Obama will be the one to unite the party. That's the plan I hear that is going on underneath. Also, the only senator that indicated interest that I might run against her, I was watching MSNBC yesterday, and he said he's not. That's Senator Joe Manchin, the independent senator. He said he's not running against her any longer. That he just wanted a competitive race and all of that. So I think since the road is clear as regards that, I think she'll pretty much go safely. See, the reason why I'm telling President Tinubu to please, if engage in youth, do that with our spaces is, you are lucky Nigerians are very good people. Nigerians don't like wahala. It's not that they hate you, that's why they want to, but they want their voice to be heard. See, Kenya, that they are scratching Kenya for months now. Ask me how much is food inflation in Kenya? 6.9%. Nigeria is over 40%. Yeah. And the people have not gone on the street, they are still enduring. Don't you know the people they are very good people. They just want you to listen to them. They just want you to stop all this extravagant way of living. They just want Mr. Akpabio to stop saying all the things he's saying against Nigerians.
People who voted for you into office.
And they just want people like Mr. Bayo Onanuga to stop all this false accusation he's doing. Nigerians are very bad. Food inflation over 40%. They are not on the streets yet. Look at Kenya, just 7%. But they want engagements.
Yeah. And you can see, and going back to that Kenya story, because we've been talking about, we can see that, to be honest, if we're being honest, protests don't always solve issues. Right. Look at what's happening in Kenya. After they had the negotiation, the president fired his cabinet, or did a full cabinet reshuffle. Also, came out to apologize. After some of their needs were not met, they went back to the streets again, leading to some other casualties as well. So the question then would be, when would this end? At what point would we? So what you want to do is to avoid it in the first place. Right. If not, you're going to have a never-ending cycle. And that's why let the people who are around the president at this time give him sound advice. It's not about, we know how we're going to handle them, let us be releasing. Because I saw he released another statement again, still that's Chibayo Onanuga, still, and we do respect him, they should give him good advice. In terms of managing communication, that's one of the key things I feel like hasn't been properly or well done in this administration, if I were being honest. In terms of, and it's just followed the tradition of previous governments where it is that thing of, no, you don't have to speak to the people, do anything. We don't want that. Life has moved on. And the young people, Gen Z, what they call them, the Sowosoke generation, you speak up. And it's not just speaking up from their end, even from the end of government, you speak up. So I'm just to really highlight that point that we see what is happening in other parts of the world. It's happened in Nigeria before. Let's not have to get to that point. They will now come to the table like, and then, like a minister is now bringing the oil and gas stakeholders to the table. Do it before things start, before things start falling apart.
People.
But thank you very much.
I've seen the rice, not only about rice. I've seen it.
Thank you, Adefemi. Thank you so much.